Okay. We should be... Hello, everyone. If you can just let me know if the sound is working properly. If it is, then we can get started. How's the sound? Sound working okay? Excellent. Perfect. Last but not least here. All right, let me just see if I can... I think I remember from last time that it keeps auto-focusing. So hold on one second. Let me see if I can turn that off. And then we'll get started. Okay. Turn off the autofocus. Okay. Just let me know if, so long as the autofocus is not a problem. Okay, I think we're good. No? Yes? Just gotta let me know if the video is working okay. If not, then I'll need to fix it. I know that some people spend the whole time thinking to themselves they wish that it was that it was clearer, or they wish that the sound was working properly. So I just want to make sure that that's done before we get started. Okay. All good. Okay. The camera isn't steady. Hold on one second. I think I should be able to fix that. Hold up. Is that all right? Steady now? Okay, last but not least. Okay. Today's class is dedicated Le'ilui Nishmat Rose Razel Chaya Bat Chava Alea Shalom, Rachel Bat Sophie Shafia Alea Shalom, Jamil Bat Rivka Alea Shalom, Rabbi David Ben Rivka Alava Shalom, Shlomo Ben Rivka Alava Shalom, Rachel Bat Yafa Alea Shalom, Yvette Bat Bahia Alea Shalom, Yaakov Ben Sarah Alava Shalom, Leah Bat Mazal Alea Shalom, and for the Refuah Shelema of Marco Mordechai Ben Jamile, Rachel Chaya Bat Yehudit, Rachel Bat Esther, Moshe Chaim Ben Jacqueline, Linda Bat Rachel, and Rav Yoshua Yosef Pinto Ben Zeri. Okay, excellent. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to, if I can, take one step backward. Before we take, we are finding ourselves through this challenge, this challenging time, going through a lot of different emotions in general in life, okay? There's no question that is something that people are dealing with and thinking about all the time. However, I think that there's two parts to the way we look at this kind of experience that we think that we have in our life. One way is where we are unfortunately unable to manage whatsoever the challenge as it's being sent to us. And in one way where we're, instead of being weak and victims of something, we're actually in charge of the challenge. The challenge is our horse, it's our car, it's the way we engage, and everything that's being sent our way is a possible way to be able to achieve more. And the reason why I want to begin this way today is because, we've been doing this class for Refuah Shlema for a long time, for Rosalind Levy. And, it's, we just heard the challenging news over the last couple days about how things were deteriorating, and eventually she passed away. And this class is really dedicated Le'ilui Nishmata as well. And I thought maybe a nice thing to do would be to try and take something that she excelled in, and to speak a little bit about that midah in a method and in a way where it should be a refuah shlema, a zechut refuah shlema for those that need, and a tremendous ilui neshama for those that are no longer with us. And after speaking to the family, there's no question that the overarching thing that they feel that she symbolized, that she embodied more than anything else, was this unbelievable, all-pervasive simcha. A person who was happy all the time, a person who tried to stay positive in every possible situation. Her life wasn't complicated by a lot of different things. The most important thing in the world to her was her family, was her husband, who she had a fairy tale marriage with for what would have been 52 years. And I thought to myself, what a wonderful life goal to think to oneself, how do I go out and achieve and get this gift of joy, of happiness in life? And I wanted to speak a little bit about that with everybody today. And I think that, it's fitting in this Path to Greatness class. There's this, this intense study that we've been doing at looking at the internal nature of human beings and seeing how is it that human beings work, what makes them tick, what makes them great, what makes them fail. And I think a tremendous thing to think about is these two words, which is going to be the title of our class today, and that is thinking happy. Not being happy, not smiling, those are different things. Thinking happy. And I'll tell you the difference between being happy and thinking happy is being happy requires you to actually be in a happy mood. Thinking happy you could do when there's tears running down your face. And the reason why I share this is such a powerful idea was with something that I said in our Shabbat afternoon class. If anyone would like, we are now starting our Shabbat afternoon class up again. We did it this past week at the Asas. We had about 100 people there. It was magnificent. Rabbi Mizrahi will be there this week. If you want details, reach out. We'll let you know where and when it will be exactly. It should be around 7 o'clock on a Shabbat afternoon. All right? And in the class, I mentioned one line, a line that we've learned together for those of you who are with me in Pirkei Avot. In Pirkei Avot, we studied this idea called Aseh Lecha Rav, which means make for yourself, Rav, a teacher. And there's many people who talk about all the different things that a person needs to do in order to ensure that they have a teacher and that they're benefiting from that teacher. But I brought a second idea, another interpretation to this concept of Aseh Lecha Rav, where it means Aseh Lecha Rav, make yourself Rav, big. Make yourself giant. Make yourself capable of dealing with the things that come our way. Now, that doesn't sound to be possible. I either am big enough, I either am brave enough, I either am positive enough, or I'm not. But the tremendous chidush that we in Torah have always known, but in psychology they've learned over the last couple decades, is that the choice that a person has, this choice that they make to be happy, actually has nothing to do with whether or not the person lives a happy, privileged life. Nothing to do with it. You'll have people who have absolutely everything and are consistently miserable and are using every form of medication to get themselves out of the situation that they're in, even though their situation is magnificent. And you have people who sit there all the time and they are obsessed, I would say, with with what's it called? With the life that they have. They're obsessed with their child, who's maybe a little bit difficult. I just went last night. I was in the house of a remarkable human being whose name is Dovi Saratskin, and Dovi is an old friend of mine, and he has a son who unfortunately is not well. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we are also, of course, also praying for his refuah shlema, for Shlomo Saratskin. But I want to share with you something that he said to me that was so powerful, and to hear it from a father who's suffering, who's got such a difficult time with his child, living in the hospital straight for 6 months. Okay, and listen what he says. People come to my house, they come visit. They see my family, they see me, they see my son, and they give me a beracha. They say, I bless you that you should have nachat from your children. And he says, I don't say anything because I don't want to insult them. But I think to myself, when they're leaving, I give you a beracha that you should have as much nachat from all of your kids as I have from my son. Not when he's better, but as he is. What a fantastic thing to say. What a remarkable feeling to communicate. That he's experiencing unbelievable nachat from what? Experiencing nachat from a child that people are writing off. I need you to understand that. You could have someone who's crying all the time in a situation like that, or someone who's managing to pierce through the clouds and see some sort of a silver lining. And how is it? Do you have better eyes if you can see that? Are you a person who's better trained? No. The answer is that you've made a decision. I'm thinking happy. Now, I want to share a little bit about this idea, this concept of thinking happy. Because it sounds very new agey, doesn't it? It sounds like it's a thing that a person, every one of us needs to do, if we want to be part of Tony Robbins' next seminar. But actually, Rav Zelig Pliskin points out a magnificent idea. He quotes the pasuk in the Torah. The pasuk says, and he said his Rebbe used to say, Rav Gifter, alav hashalom, always used to say this. The pasuk says in Devarim, in chapter 26, V'samachta b'chol hatov, and you will rejoice in all the good, asher natan lecha Hashem Elokecha, that Hashem, your God, has given you. And I have a question to ask. There's a lot of noise, a lot of chatter, a lot of buzz that's been going on over the last 24 to 36 hours, I would say, about this hashtag called Jewish privilege that they're throwing around in the media about how we don't understand other people's because we are very privileged. We have Jewish privilege. It's not enough white privilege. We have Jewish privilege. And people were replying and responding in the most magnificent ways to talk about what Jewish privilege was. Hashtag Jewish privilege. Jewish privilege meaning my grandfather was 8 years old when the Nazis kicked his door down. That's pretty recent, and that doesn't sound all that privileged to me. That they came to this country with $4 in their pocket. That doesn't sound all that privileged to me. That they worked very, very, very hard to be able to build a new family here. That doesn't sound very privileged to me. But there's a person who looks at that situation and says, I have $4, nothing else. I've lost everything. I have enemies that want me dead. I've had to move from one country to another until finally I'm finding a place to call home again. You could lick your wounds and think about how unlucky you are, or you could look around you and say, wow, never have the Jewish people had a country like the country we have today. Never have we been able to build societies, communities like the communities that we have built today. They are remarkable. They are full of chesed. They are full of Torah. They are full of traditions. They are people who are patriotic towards their country. They are people who live by a high code. This is the community that we live in. Unbelievable. What a remarkable thing. Are there things wrong? Absolutely. But the way you look at it is, there's so much good. And look, here's something that we could do better. But the overall feeling is not one of negativity. It's not one of knocking. It's not one of, castigation. It's one of joy, of celebratory nature. There was a great story. I always remember this story about a Hasidic Rebbe. He has a couple that's arguing all the time, and they come to him and they're thinking about getting divorced. And here's their last chance where they're going to come for this last chance to try and stay together. And they sit down and the couple looks at each other And they look at the rabbi and they each sigh, this audible sigh, and the rabbi said, what are you sighing about? The husband says, I don't know what happened. We used to be so happy. We used to be so good together. We used to celebrate every day. We used to go enjoy ourselves and travel and eat out, and the romance was amazing and the family was fantastic. Everything is amazing. Wonderful. Okay? Hold on. The rabbi says, sounds great. What's the problem? He says, but, something's happened and we can't figure out what. And we're coming to you to try and help us fix the problem in our marriage. Rabbi says, okay, I have only one question for you. They're thinking he's going to start talking about, all the different lines in the Torah, Chazal, about Jewish marriage, everything like this. And he just looks behind him and he points to this wall behind him. And he says, tell me what you see. They're looking at this big white wall behind him. And as they're looking at the wall, they see right in the middle of the wall, right behind the rabbi, there's a squished fly on the wall. So the husband looks at his wife looks at the husband. They say at the same time, there's a squished fly behind you. And the rabbi smiles and he says, all of that nice, beautiful wall, and all you see is a squished bug? You want to know what the problem with your marriage is? Squished bug is the problem in your marriage. They were incapable of being able to rejoice in one another because they were in a mindset where they were not thinking happy. They were thinking critically. They were thinking in a way of selfishness, trying to take more all the time. When a person decides that that's the head that they're going to use, a head of simcha, and in fact, like Rav Gifta points out, it's a mitzvah in the Torah. You must rejoice in all the good that God gave you. Now, it doesn't say you must be thankful. I know a lot of people who are very polite. They say please and thank you all the time, but they're just never happy. They're walking around with a scowl on their face. The world owes them everything plus $5. Okay? When someone is thinking like that, of course they're going to find many, many, many more things to be able to be negative about. What the rabbi was communicating to them was, you want to know where the problems in your marriage start? It's that each and every one of you is thinking, what's wrong with my partner? What's wrong with my child? What's wrong with my job? Wrong with my boss? Wrong with my employee? What's wrong with my 401k? What's wrong with my house? What's wrong with my vacation? A person like that is walking around trying desperately all the time to find fault. And when a person is looking for that, of course they will. They will find fault. There's not a thing or a person on earth that is perfect. And if that is the case, so you can know where your life is going to go. People who have very strong family relationships are people who are capable of looking the other way when there's something about a person in their family or in their life that annoys them. Because they say to themselves, yes, they're annoying, but what is the benefit that I'm getting for the price of the annoyance? And I want to share with you an unbelievable avodah, an unbelievable piece of work that I saw that really kind of drove this home. Rav Pliskin writes about a man whose name is Rabbi Leibel Benjaminson. Anyway, the guy, he's in a chabura, a group of people who are constantly focusing on developing themselves. And one of the things that they talked about was about thinking happy, about being grateful with the things that life sends your way. So they each took on, and there was a little activity, a workshop that they needed to do. And what was the idea? Take one thing, a random thing in your life, and then write everything that you can think about, that thing that there is to be thankful for. Anyway, they ask, what kind of thing are we supposed to take? The person running the session says, take something that you think is inconsequential, is not an important thing, but something you enjoy, something small. What does Rabbi Benjaminson pick? He picks a cup of coffee. All right? Shout out to Cafe Arone. All right? He thinks of a cup of coffee. Anyway, he gets out a piece of paper and he thinks, okay, this will be quick. I like coffee because of caffeine, but all of a sudden it strikes him. He says, wow, in order for me to get this coffee, Someone needed to take these these grounds, these beans, whatever. Someone needed to grind them. And he starts thinking, oh my gosh, that means that there's someone I owe a thank you to who ground this coffee for me. Someone who poured the coffee, the barista, I have to be thankful for. And not only the person who ground the coffee, what about the people who shipped the coffee? So all the people who trucked it to the boat, who then took it from the boat, who then put it in the thing, all the people who packaged it, all the truckers that then took the package and brought it to the stores, the cashier, Shema Yisrael. Now he's already thinking about the people who were growing it, the people who planted it. He's going out of his mind. By now he has a list of people he needs to thank for this cup of coffee that's longer than the whole page. And then he says to himself, oh my gosh, I didn't even get started yet on the milk. And all the people that were, the person that milked the cow, the person that packaged the milk, the person that refrigerated the milk, I just think for 1 second, when a person tries to imagine the sugar, the sweetener, whatever it is that you're doing, think of the hundreds of people that had to come together for you to have a stinking cup of coffee. Never mind the cup itself. Just the coffee, just the liquid in the coffee that you drink without thinking in the morning. Hundreds of people conspired to bring you that little pleasure. Are people annoying? Yes. You want to make yourself a cup of coffee? I'll see you next year. Do you understand? You're going to go out now and go plant your own coffee? You're going to go grow it? You're going to go roast it? You're going to go grind it? What are you, crazy? You know what? You'd spend all your day just making the cup of coffee. And now you'd be up enough, to, at nighttime to have it keep you up during the night. Each and everything in our life is actually like this. And although, there are people out there who don't love the job that they have, just for 1 second think about the fact that you have a job. That there are hundreds of thousands of people in the craziness that we're living through that don't have any job. Could you imagine looking at a job that you don't particularly like and thinking, wow, Baruch Hashem, this is so amazing. Look at the goodness that God gave me, that I have a method of employment. Now, again, most people are thinking about their job in terms of good job or bad job. But do they think in terms of their job, in terms of job? Never mind whether it's good or bad. You're actually employed. You're gainfully employed. People all the time tell me, Rabbi, you know what? You know why I'm not happy? Because I have a very difficult family. Yeah, but you have family. You think about it. We think in terms of good or bad, but not in terms of the actual thing itself. One of the pieces of advice that Rav Noach Weinberg always used to give all of his students, he would tell everybody that whoever would come to him, for him, being happy in life was one of the most important things in the world. In fact, the Sifrei Musar talk about happiness, not just as a mitzvah, but as one of the biggest mitzvot. Rav Nachman is famously quoted as saying, mitzvah gedolah liyot b'simcha tamid. It's a great mitzvah to be joyful all the time. Now, again, I want to make sure that this is clear. Go find me that mitzvah in the Torah, that there's a mitzvah to just be happy all the time. You can't really find it. There's a mitzvah that says, v'samachta b'chol hatov. So we're not talking about a person who just walks around like with no thoughts in his brain. We're not talking about just pasting some sort of fake smile on your visage so that you can walk around and people can think that you're happy. We're talking about an actual concerted effort, a decision that a person makes to live in the world of happiness. And when you do that, the mitzvot that a person is capable of doing, they skyrocket. Honoring your parents, how much easier is that when you're happy? You don't like what they said, you don't like exactly what they did, you think they like the other one better, you got parents. You won't exist without them. Have they not done, even a person who has the worst father, have they not done tremendous amounts for you if you go back in your history all the way from when you were a child until now? Is there not so much to be joyful for that you had a home with a parent, with two parents? Some have none. Okay? This opportunity, this idea of thinking happy is a remarkable one. And I'd like to perhaps go into, for 1 second, what it is that differentiates the people that decide to think happy versus the ones that don't. If this is indeed a choice that a person can make, they can decide for themselves, okay, what's today? Today is Monday, it's 2:30 p.m. From now on, I'm going to think happy. Does it work like that? Can you? Yes, you can, if you're incredibly self-disciplined. But if you can't just decide that from Monday 2:30, July whatever, 13th or 14th, whatever today is, right? To decide that from this moment on, for the rest of my life, I'm happy all the time. If that's too much, I'd like to talk about perhaps creating a happy zone. Now, where you put the zone is actually a very, very, very difficult question, one that you should think about. For some people, the easiest time to be happy is first thing in the morning. I said to someone once, you were talking about living a joyous life, feeling like you want to dance, not going like this in the rain, not cursing the weather, not, getting so thrown out of whack because it was traffic. We were talking about being joyous, and I said to him, when is it perfect? He says, morning, best time. Why? There hasn't been any time for anything to go wrong. Yani, the guy's waiting for things to go wrong. Morning is a good time because nothing's gone wrong yet. You know what I said to him? Dib, nothing's gone right yet. That's an eternal pessimist. The morning is good because nothing's gone wrong yet. Yeah, but nothing's gone right yet. All right? Now, the amazing thing is, for that guy, morning is a perfect time. For me, if I try and be happy all the time, I try and be optimistic a lot. But if I had to choose, morning would be the worst time. I'm not a morning person. When you're like this and you're propping your eyes open with chopsticks, that's not my happy time. For me, a great time is before a person goes to bed. In fact, one of the beautiful tefillot, the tefillot of Kriyat Shema al Hamita, talks about is a conversation that a person has between themselves and God. And Rav Noach used to always advise his students. He would say, before you go to sleep, take out a piece of paper, take out a pen, and just write down, simple as. Don't do this for more than 30 days. Take it for 1 month. It's not a big deal. Right by your bed, a little notebook. You could do it on your phone, but I would actually suggest that you don't. Take out a piece of paper, write down 5 things that you are thankful for that day. Now, that does not mean I won the lottery. That's not what simcha means. And I want to give an idea for this. The word simcha is spelled shin, mem, het, hey, which is fascinating. Because in order for a person to actually be a happy person, what do they need? All they need is the same letters that they have there. Chet, mem, shin, hey, which spells 5. When a person has their 5 senses, if they have nothing else, just the fact that they could see, that they could walk, that they could walk, they could talk, they could feel, right? I know that's not a sense, but just the fact that you are as you are without any other problems, that alone is something to be joyous for. What if a person doesn't have those things? What if a person is coughing? I remember reading this unbelievable story about a man who goes to the doctor, and it's particularly apropos now during this difficult time of respiratory illnesses. He goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, listen, if you want, no problem, we can get you on a respirator, but it's a special respirator that we need, and it's going to cost, $500, to turn on, and that will help you breathe. Anyway, the guy, he starts crying. Doctor says, you're crying. You must not have the money. I'm really sorry. Don't worry. I'm sure we can figure it out. Even if you're not insured, we'll get you this machine. It's okay. The man says, no, that's not the problem. I'm a very wealthy man. He says, so why are you crying? He says, I just thought to myself, here I am, I'm struggling to breathe. I'd be happy to pay $500, not for the most delicious, steak dinner in the magnificent restaurant, not for a beautiful hotel room. I'll spend $500 on a breath. Unbelievable. He says, what that means is if I'll spend $500 on a breath, and I'm only realizing this now when I'm an older man, how many breaths have I taken throughout my life? And how much do I owe God? I thought I was doing pretty well. Like I did a couple of mitzvot. I feel like God owes me. But the minute now that I find out that without God's help, it'll cost me $500 to have one breath, I just realized, it's kind of like when you get that tax bill and you think that they owe you money. And then all of a sudden you realize you made a mistake and you owe them a ton of money. That was the realization. That is our life. In fact, the Nishmat Kol Chai, the Tefillah, actually goes through this in a great detail. Even if we were to do this and to do that, we could never even repay the fact that we have something small, something tiny of the lives that we have. So when I'm talking about joy and happiness and writing something down that makes you feel like, wow, what a special day, what a kindness from Hashem I experienced, I'm not talking about the lottery. I'm talking about the abilities to notice something that is so small, so seemingly insignificant. You don't realize how easy it is to breathe until you look at someone who literally can't get a breath in. You don't realize how beautiful sight is until you're guiding some blind fella down the road, helping them cross the street. You don't realize. May God bless us always to be able to have that realization, because without that realization, without noticing it, there's no possible way to have gratitude for it. And if there's no way to have gratitude in small things in our lives, then how can we be really happy? So I want to share a little bit about the fine things, the finer things in life. Because we talk about the fine things in life when we're talking about luxuries. But the fine things, I mean things that are small, things that are thin. In Hebrew, you'd call them dak. So thin, gossamer strands, that if you're not paying attention, they're not there. I want to talk to you 1 second about what that means. And again, everybody's got their own. But I just want to give you an example of just small, tiny, little, tiny things. Have you ever gone to Central Park and you've walked through the park and there's this guy sitting underneath the bridge and he's playing his saxophone underneath the bridge right by the zoo, right? That bridge. But it's really, the truth is, any underpass. And you go there when he's not playing music, and I've walked there with my family, and whenever we go there, the first thing we do as soon as we get under the bridges, we start to sing. Kol ha'olam kulo. And just the beauty, the richness of the sound, it's enough to bring me to tears. Just the echoing sound that surrounds you. The words, the melody that just kind of feels like it's wrapped around you like a cloak. What a beautiful thing. God doesn't need to make that. He doesn't need to insert that in our world. Just being able to hear that. I remember this video watching, someone sent around a little while ago, when they were first making cochlear implants for babies. And there's this video where they take the implant, they put it on the baby's skull, because it works with a magnet, I think. And then, for the first time, they turn it on. And all of a sudden, the mom talks, and the baby's like, and there's that look of surprise, and then this big smile, and then the tears start to come. You cannot watch this video without crying. Just the gift of being able to hear the sound of the people you love. My mother-in-law is profoundly deaf. My brothers-in-law happen to all have the most magnificent voices. And I remember one time she was walking one of their children down the aisle, and all of the brothers are sitting there together under the chuppah, and they're singing the most magnificent song. And everyone in the place is like this. And she can't hear it. She's never heard them sing. Think about that. I love music. What would my life, my day feel like without music running through it? Think about that. When you think about the gratitude that you have for a good song, gratitude to, again, people don't think this way, to an artist, someone that writes a song that makes you feel great, or that makes you feel, even if it doesn't make you feel great, you feel some emotion, something, it's a sad song that helps you cry, but it connects you to something. You feel alive when you feel, okay? That's why we call it feel alive. In that moment, there's a gratitude. There should be a gratitude for my ears for the music, for the artist that wrote it, for the fact that I can get it for free on Spotify practically. That's an amazing thing, that all of this music is just there for you at all times. Do you remember when we needed to carry music with us wherever we went? And you had to figure out before you went on vacation which tapes or CDs you were going to be in the mood of once you got there? And if you didn't, and you wanted to hear the song, what could you do? Turn into the local KTU, 74.7 on the FM dial, and then tell them to play the song, and they'd play it 3 hours later. That's how you got your song. These things, so simple. The sound, the echoing under a bridge. The sight of watching a child's face crinkle into laughter. What a magnificent gift that is. You know? And I think that if a person analyzes their day, they begin to realize how many things they have in their life that are just remarkable. You know, I discovered something over the last week. You know, I had corona about 4 months ago, and I lost my sense of smell. But a weird thing happened. It didn't come back. So I could taste everything, but I couldn't smell. I mentioned this about cilantro. Recently, I started to realize something unbelievable. I smelled an orange and it smelled like sewage. And then I thought, what happened? Something's wrong with this orange. And then it wasn't. And then I went from orange to mint. And the mint smelled like the orange. And then I smelled the Havdalah candle after it went out. You know, the strong smoke smell. Smelled the same smell. And I couldn't understand what was going on with my sense of smell. And I read the most amazing article that explained what was happening to me. Actually, the process of smell is something that doesn't belong to one particular part of your nose. There's many different parts, and they operate together to weave together some sort of an idea which your brain then translates into the smell. At this stage, only one part of my smell had returned, and that was the ability to detect that it was a strong smell. So therefore, even things like coffee should not smell like mint, which should not smell like an orange, which should not smell like smoke. But for right now, they do. But even that is something that is a gift. Even that, even the ability to tell, it just fills me with such happiness, because I can see at this moment, even though I can't smell, I can see that it's coming back. And to read those words online, which says, with most people, it comes back in a week. Some may take months, and some never. Thinking about not being able to smell ever again. So these things, the way a person thinks happy, is a choice, and the choice happens, Rabotai. The choice happens through the process of focusing. Now, I want to take you to another place. Through the ability, if you will, of focusing, like we spoke about, choosing to find things to put on your list each and every day, no matter what they might be. You know, the other day, I was sitting outside, I was schwitzing. I'm a big schwitzer. And as I'm sitting there schwitzing, thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I can't. Do you know, I remembered that I was trying to work on this thing. So I said, oh, it's fantastic. All of this schwitz means that I'm getting in shape. It means that my heart is working harder. It means that I'm losing weight. Magnificent. I started in the hot days to turn my face to the sun, because even in the heat, you can still feel the beauty of that feeling when the warm sun hits your face. We need to wake up and live in the world that we live in instead of living in the world that we wish we would live in. That is so often something that gets in the way of a person being able to focus and to process their Torah. Now, how much more so? How much more so if the things that you have is not just a little bit of smell, not just a little bit of taste, not just a little bit of sight where you could see something beautiful, because those are the great gifts. Like we said, Chamisha, you got the 5 senses, that's already enough. You're already a millionaire. Amazing. But if you merited to have love in this life, to have someone in your life who loved you, what a magnificent thing that is. Whether it's a husband or wife, whether it's a child, whether it's parents, whether it's a friend, to feel loved by somebody. What a magnificent gift. I think as well that to a large degree, everything that we need to know about Simcha was hidden in the word itself. What does that mean? I told you that the letters that spell the word Simcha are Shin, Mem, Chet, Hey. But to a degree, those words, the letters in the Hebrew language, we all understand, are not only used in the letters and in the order that they make up words, but they are also used in interchangeable ways. We've spoken a lot about this over many different classes. So you'll find, as an example, a guy whose name is Korach, and you're trying to figure out why is Korach so argumentative, and then you realize that there's another word that is also the same thing, which is the same letters, and that's Kerach, because he was cold. He was someone that didn't have the warmth towards friends. He was also someone who was rokeach. He was someone who mixed many different things and ideas together to come up with some sort of manifesto that he let guide his life instead of feeling things together. But what is amazing is that not only is simcha the same as chamisha, it also spells a secret concept, and that is, take the first letter and the third letter, and you read the word as chash ma. Ma means something small. Moshe Rabbeinu says in the desert, he says, Va'anachnu ma, me and my brother Aaron, we're nothing. Why are you complaining against us? Why do you want it? That's why Moshe is considered the most humble person in the world, because he says, Va'anachnu ma, I am nothing. Chash ma means, chash in Hebrew means to feel. Chash ma means you're able to feel something tiny, even nothing. You're capable of feeling and interacting. Now, it is a crazy thing to think that sometimes the nature of joy, the nature of simcha actually necessitates sadness. Because why in the world would a Torah that wants you all the time to be happy, why would we be given days and halachot that revolve around being sad? And I want to share with you a tremendous idea. Tremendous. There are many people in this world that strike you as being happy people, but actually they're not. They're putting on a happy face. And why are they putting on a happy face? Because they've experienced something in their life that was so difficult, that was so hard, that was so painful, that they chose, rather to feel, they chose to shut down completely. The minute a person denies any level of sadness, denies any level of grief or of mourning, that person precludes themselves also from feeling the opposite side. If you locked up your heart because you were so terrified of it breaking, you also locked up your heart, and now no one is capable, or nothing is capable of bringing it to life, of bringing it joy, because those walls, they keep out friends as well as enemies. When a person has something in their life that they go through that is very, very sad and very difficult, the Torah doesn't tell you to deny your feelings. If you're going through something that's hard, the last thing in the world you want is someone telling you to be happy, to rejoice. I think you need to hear this, because actually, amazing, beautiful concept, but if you are unwilling to taste sadness, you're pulling yourself away from your reality, your real world. You are sad, that is okay. But when you go into it properly, when you cry as much as you need to, when you need to, and you don't put those tears away, then those tears don't wind up waterlogging or diluting your moments of joy. This idea, the idea of chash ma, you want a road to simcha, feel. Feel everything in your life. Don't deny your feelings. If a person is very angry, it's okay to taste that, to feel it. But the minute you've now got that, you've tasted that, you understand it, you've cried all you need to, now you're capable of taking all the wonderful things of the thing that I'm actually upset about or mourning about. It's only once we've cried that all out, which is why our Chachamim in their great wisdom taught us that during the time of the Shiva, a person is not allowed to take their mind off of the mourning. They're only really supposed to speak about the person they lost. Now that sounds crazy. Surely, if you're really sad, the one thing you want to do is distract yourself. True, if you want to leave the baggage inside. But if you actually want to take all the difficulty, the hard parts, the gray. If you want to get that, if you can get that out now in the simcha, during the time of the Shiva, everything is brought out to the forefront. Then all the wonderful moments that a person had in their life with someone that they've lost can suddenly start to emerge. If people are denying that a child is not well, then they also can't enjoy any element of that child. I mentioned this young boy. I just want to give him a shout out. The nurses, they don't understand him. He's sitting there and he's from his bed. The way he communicates is by moving his head or his eyes. And he started 2 businesses. He's got something called Shlomo's Power Bites, where they're very, very healthy, and they're, protein, and they've brought down the sugar, and he has loads and loads of people from that place. And the dad is looking and celebrating all the wonderful things that his kid is giving him, even though there are many things that he could choose to focus on that he's not getting, or that the child is not having. Being in touch with your real self and your real feelings is the way to achieve simcha. And the only way you can feel that, you can achieve that, is if you're constantly feeding yourself a healthy diet of appreciation. Because otherwise, your view of your world is distorted. The things you don't notice, my friends, are not things you just didn't notice. They're things you don't have. If you don't recognize that you have a happy marriage, then the greatest gift that it gives you is that feeling of attachment, of closeness, of connection, right? That's what it gives you. If you don't have joy in the fact that you have children, even if they're not calling as much as you'd like, right? But the fact that you have children, healthy children, if you don't focus on the fact how blessed I am, then you know what happens? You don't think of it. And if you don't think of it, what do you think of? The things that are bringing you pain, instead of the things that are bringing you joy. So this idea, this commandment, v'samachta b'chol hatov, is something that every one of us could work on. The other day, a very clever young man, after a class, he asked me, Rabbi, what am I supposed to be thinking about when I'm in the bathroom? I wanted to tell him getting clean, but I just left that. What am I supposed to think about when I'm in the bathroom? Can't think Torah, he was saying. So one of the things I told this young man is, count your blessings. It's not Torah. Think back about the moment you decide that the space in your brain which is empty is going to be filled with remembering good things, then your experience at the end of that day is an experience of a day that was a great day. Did you hear that? Now, this idea of writing 5 things down at the end of the day, some people it will work for and some people it won't. Give it a try. But even if you don't do it in as a systemic and systematic way as that, even if you choose instead of doing it that way, to put it in your tefillot, in your prayers, Modim anachnu lach, thank you Hashem, and that's when you think about it. That might work for you. But what you do need is this constant awareness of the gifts in your life. As big as the love of a husband, wife, child, mother, whatever, as small as the echo underneath the sound of the underpass. The feeling that you feel when you jump into a swimming pool on a hot day. Wow! Never mind if you own the swimming pool. Just that feeling, how refreshing that feels. What it feels like to have a l'chaim with friends, to kick back. We don't think about that gift. It's a gift from God. Hashem sent you that, gift wrapped. Here, have some friends, have a nice time. I just went and I had a barbecue with one of my best, oldest friends, all right? We sat there. It's like, we don't get to see each other as much as we'd like. But to just sit down, it's magnificent. This idea of simcha being primary is brought down in the books of the Hasidic masters. And they talk about the greatest tool of the Yetzer Hara. What is the greatest tool of the Yetzer Hara? They talked about it in terms of something called Mara Shchora, which literally means a black bile. Like
They were talking about something physical in the body that they felt would happen when a person was in a negative state of mind. But that was their terminology for it, their expression for it. It doesn't necessarily mean that is what they're talking about. But I just want to talk about this, that the idea of sadness being the greatest tool of the Yetzer Hara. Let's give an example of how that works. Someone walks into your office and they say, you still not done the project yet. Someone walks into your Shabbat house and they say, oh my gosh, I remember this, what's it called? These plates. They're the same ones that you had when you got married 20 years ago. Some people are stupid. Some people are stupid. They're unaware. They're socially inept. They don't realize that a comment that they're saying without thinking can be something that's very hurtful. Oh, what are you saying? That I couldn't afford to buy new china in 20 years? What are you saying? That I'm behind? That do you have any idea what my workload is? Right? That you're coming in here with your judgy, is your project ready yet sound of voice, right? I want you to imagine, just as an example, that you had just heard 2 seconds before, you had just heard that your best friend got engaged. You just heard 2 seconds before that your son, you just had a grandson. You just heard 2 seconds before that you won the lottery. There's a halo. When a person is in a good mood, when a person has simcha, they're in a halo. And in that halo, in that feeling, that warm vibe that I'm surrounded by in joy, it makes me bulletproof. That same comment, same insensitivity, same point that I can't afford, same point that I'm being judged on my work, it doesn't touch me. And I think that that's the second meaning of the word chashma. The second meaning of that word is that when a person is truly in a moment of simcha, when they're allowing themselves to feel everything that comes their way in the fullness of its, in the fullness of its joy, in the fullness of its sadness, in the fullness of its whatever, that I'm actually living within my shoes, when that happens and someone comes along, chashma, I feel nothing. I don't allow negative things that just don't bother me. Not because I'm choosing not to let them bother me, because that is exhausting to have to keep choosing that. Not because I'm trying to be a good Jew, but because it just rolls off my back. So a lot of times, you give advice to people that sounds counterintuitive. Someone told me, Rabbi, I'm miserable in my marriage. I said, I have a great idea for you. I had just been learning one of the Sifarim on this. And he says, what's your idea? I said, you have to be happier. He says, Rabbi, thank you very much. That's the worst advice I ever heard in my life. I came to you, I told you I'm not happy in my marriage, and you're telling me I have to be happier. I said, I didn't say you have to be happy with her. I said, you have to be happier. Sometimes we need to know ourselves. And the path to greatness not only means seeing the best part of yourself, the Rav in yourself, the powerful you, but it also accurately understanding the weak you. You're in a bad mood, you're about to go home, go get yourself a piece of cake. Have a cookie. Get your sugar up. Recognize that actually right now I need a pick-me-up, and that's okay, that's fine. But when you get back, when you decide that I want to be happier because I know that that's going to solve a problem that I have, that focused determination to be happy then brings a sense of, I don't even know what the terminology would be, of resilience. It brings a sense of being indomitable, like you cannot bring me down because you came in happy. That's the gift that Simcha gives. Now, I want to add one more element from this word of simcha. In Hebrew, there's a word called lehamchish. Okay? You know what that means? Lehamchish means to make something, to envision or to imagine something. Okay, that's your imagination. As an example, is a person's trying to imagine. You can't really begin to imagine or illustrate in your mind's eye the importance of something. The last thing I want to talk about with the last couple minutes we have together is the power of imagination. And I don't know if this will be helpful, but I want to give you the example that I thought of a long time ago because my brain is very, very visual. I remember I was studying the first pasuk, the first beracha in the Amidah, in the silent prayer that we make every day. And in the silent prayer, it talks about this idea called Koneh HaKol. What does that mean? Koneh HaKol doesn't mean that God is he's the ultimate buyer. Doesn't mean he buys for Walmart. Doesn't mean Koneh HaKol, he buys everything. Koneh HaKol means he makes everything. But further than just the fact that Hashem makes everything, Koneh HaKol means he's in a constant state of making everything. In Judaism, we believe that Borei Olam wills everything into existence non-stop. And were he to stop willing us into existence, we wouldn't die, we would just disappear. Okay, so it's kind of like in the human imagination. If I imagine for 1 second, I imagine a yellow Corvette. Now, how long does that yellow Corvette exist in my mind's eye? As long as I'm putting in the effort to see it. The minute I stop seeing it, what happens to that yellow Corvette? It doesn't explode, doesn't drive off a cliff, right? Nobody sells it on eBay. It just stops to exist. The fascinating thing is that when God created human beings, we were created in His image. And that means that oftentimes we have a gift to be able to shift our realities. And I'm not talking about denying reality. We have a gift of being able to shift our realities just using our thoughts and our imagination. Imagining the yellow Corvette means that it's here. So I want to give you the example. Let's go right back to where we were before. The classic example of this idea of focus is the glass which is half full of water. The optimist sees it and he sees it's half full. The pessimist sees it as half empty. One of Rav Avigdor Miller's grandchildren came to him and he had a cup half full of water. And he said, "Grandpa, is it half full of water? Or is it half empty? Is it half full or half empty?" And I'm asking you this question about your life as well. Is your life half full or half empty? Rav Miller looked at his grandson, smiled, and he said, "Who said it's half anything? The glass is full. Half with water, half with oxygen." Both of those are wondrous things to have a cup full of. That ability to be able to see the situation that way, it's not just that when I see it, I could then choose to feel appreciative or choose to feel happy. That is a happy thought. You don't need to work if that's how you see it. So, along with your first bit of homework from Rav Noach Weinberg that we said earlier, the idea of making a list every day with 5 things, I'm going to add one thing to the list, if that's all right. One thing. It's not so easy, but it's very powerful. And I want you to think, when you have a day and you've written all those beautiful things that you had that day, I also want you to include in your list one thing which was not a good thing. One thing that happened that day that you did not like, that you did not enjoy, that you thought was terrible. And the job is to find something, however infinitesimally small, about that thing that was powerful, that was beautiful, that was energizing. You know, I reminded of the line of Muhammad Ali, who said, "I never lose. I either win or I learn." So one person could look and say that, Muhammad Ali had X amount of wins and 25 losses, 10 losses. And Ali would tell you, I had 25 wins and 10 lessons, not losses. That ability to shift negativity to the realm of positive allows a person to live in a state of happiness. The decision all the time to think to myself, I know the value of happy living, so I'm thinking happy from now. It's difficult at first. It requires the brain engaging, konei hakol, creating this new, so to speak, vision or version of the way things are around you. But after a day and two and a week and a month, eventually you start seeing things in exactly that way. And I'll end this last idea by sharing you one word. One word. And that is, the word is perspective. If you go to the stock market, you'll see that the stock market has different prices for different objects. So gold is more expensive than salt, correct? What would you rather have, gold or salt? Gold. Pretty obvious, right? But how about if you went to someone who was creating a periodic table? He's a scientist. And on his periodic table, he needs all of these different elements. If he's missing salt but has double amounts of gold, what does he really want? He wants salt. Because on the periodic table, there's a different value system to each of these ingredients. You need them all to be able to make various things that you're going to use from the periodic table of elements to mix together to produce something. So you need each one of these ingredients. You're not looking at a periodic table in terms of value. What would happen if instead of seeing our life like some sort of stock market, where we decide and ascribe certain value to things and negative values to others, what if we looked at our life as a periodic table? An experience which would require many different things. Some things which tangentially happen to be good, but other things which tangentially happen to be bad. But at the end, you wind up with a complete set. You wind up with bingo. You got everything that you needed. From the good things, from the bad things, from everything in between. May Hashem bless us with this ability to think happy. When we think happy, we think strong. When we think happy, we're bulletproof. When we think happy, we're ready to do mitzvot. When we think happy, we're grateful. And Be'ezrat Hashem, Hashem will allow us the courage and the determination to not stop on this process of writing these things down every night, of turning negative things positive, until actually it becomes something that we do by second nature. May Hashem bless each and every one of you with the gift of eternal simcha.